Yo, 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 hit 'em high, hit 'em low. Happy St. Patrick's Day from us here at the Noble Just Ball podcast. Whether you're Irish or just Irish in your drinking habits, we want to
We are.
wish you all a very happy St. Patty's today. Nick Hughes, alongside everyone's favorite Julian, along for the ride. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's a good day. Quarterfinals World Baseball Classic game is on tonight.
Yes,
I'm
that
very
it
excited
is.
for it, as you can tell.
Yes, let's go. Uh, I mean, we could just start there for a quick little stop off. Of course, today is our AL preview episode. We'll
Yes, it
pop into
is.
that in a second. AL West, yeah, sorry. AL West preview episode. Quick little stop off. It's been a tournament, man.
It's been
And
honestly one of the most entertaining World Classics today. Like it's been up. There's been upsets. There's been chaos in pools.
yeah,
There's been
I mean,
just craziness. I love it.
Pool A was literally everyone finished with a 2-2 record.
Yeah, it came
It came
down.
down to like the run scored or whatever it was. Um,
Yeah,
Pool
it was
B
it's
was
runs scored versus outs recorded.
That's what it was. Yeah. So I mean, just super impressive stuff. Yes, tonight Puerto Rico plays Mexico. Winner advancing to face Japan, and then tomorrow I believe is USA versus Cuba. USA versus Venezuela. Winner advances to play Cuba to sort of determine the finals there. Really exciting stuff though.
Oh yeah, it's going to be
And
great seeing Cuba play in front of Little Havana.
Oh, it is going to be. I'm almost curious to see if they get the sort of in the stadium support that I hope they get.
I
Like
think they should.
I'm almost worried that it's just going to be a bunch of Cubans hanging outside of Cayo, which is like, we live here. We don't really got to go in. We'll just make noise outside. I'm curious if that's where we end up here. That being said, let's move right on in. We're going to start our AL West preview episode with a team that's near and dear, or at least was to your
Yeah.
heart. A little bit of a change of heart ahead of this season, and that's the Los Angeles Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, I mean, it's great that you and me are doing this episode because you have quite the personal track record with them. So, I'm just going to do a quick little lineup rundown, and we'll talk through some points there before we get into the bullpen rotation pieces. So, in the lineup, it's sort of per Fangraphs. Right now, the projected opening day lineup looks as such. In left field, Taylor Ward, batting second, Mike Trout in center, followed by Shohei Ohtani as the DH, Anthony Rendon at third, Hunter Renfroe in right, Brandon Drury at second, Jared Walsh at first, Logan O'Hoppe is slated to be the catcher, with David Fletcher at short, on the bench, Max Stassi, Luis Rengifo, Gio Urshela, who's probably going to be a bit of a platoon, at least slated to be a platoon with Jared Walsh, and Brett Phillips as an outfielder.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, uh, I'll let you start this out. What sort of sticks out to you there? What are you looking for? How do you feel about this
No,
lineup?
the lineup, I mean, compared to years past, the lineup is a lot more deep, whereas you have more options and you don't have to go into your little bit barren farm system to bring
Yeah,
out some guys. I think adding guys like Urshela, Drury is really going to help the team, but it's kind of just like you're hoping on stuff. Renfro's going to be a big addition.
yeah,
Um, and to me, it's just this is a do or die year for the Angels, and
yeah, very much.
it's going to be single handedly the most important and impactful season in the next for the future, short term, long term. They
Yeah,
have to win. Simple as that. And they probably feel like guys like that can plug in and probably produce some runs, help
yeah.
with the top of the lineup. It's going to be interesting to see what this, if healthy, what this lineup could really be because I think that's another thing that
Yeah.
comes down to his health.
For sure. I'm a little curious. I think the bigger thing for me, in terms of something that sort of throws me, is not having a traditional sort of shortstop on this roster
Yeah.
really at all. You know, they currently have David Fletcher slated as their starting shortstop. I
Yeah, I've
assume.
been seeing a lot of places kind of flip between Renhefio and Fletcher
Yeah,
as shortstop, which is
Yeah.
they're probably going to have somebody fight and win for that position.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things, at least the way I'm sort of looking at this is it's going to be a bit more of it's Fletcher's job as long as he's healthy.
Yeah,
Renjifio has the ability to sort of play all over the place, which is, a big help for the Angels. And then Gio Urshela is probably going to get a few looks over at short again. We saw him do it in his last season with the Yankees. I think that's for me, in terms of this lineup, that's kind of the thing that sticks out most to me.
yeah.
I, you know, I assume they'll probably DH Rendon a lot when Otani's, on the bump. Maybe they
That's what I
try
would
a
assume.
few rest days in the DH spot, but
Even
really,
though I know from past experience, they just will throw Otani out. They'll give him a rest day here and there, but if he's on the bump, he's hitting.
oh, okay.
Otani fights for it.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. I mean,
at this point, you're trying to keep this man healthy. If he wants to be out there, he's going to be out there.
yeah, that's
I think
fair.
most
That's fair enough.
Rendon is just going to either get rest days when them throwing Urshela in at third,
I
or
also, I'm also curious to see Brandon Drury back at second base, a position he hasn't actually played consistently since he was with the Diamondbacks.
yeah,
I'm a little, and this is where this is the kind of hang up. I feel that they have three true third basemen on
yeah,
this team and three true second base, or two true second base on this team. In Renjifio and Fletcher, and then you have Drury, Rendon, and of course Gio Urshela over at third. So it's kind of this weird dance to figure out who's gonna, man shortstop the most.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting team. I like to pick up Brett Phillips, gives him some speed off the bench.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
he's definitely going to be a good pinch runner situation,
yeah,
overtime rules.
yeah. Um, let's just think. I was kind of in shock, at least from the projection. I did want to mention couple guys who were not slated to sort of be on the opening day roster that kind of shocked me a little bit. Matt Tice as sort of like you know, I'm a little bit in shock that Logan O'Hoppe is sort of slated over him. I feel like
Yeah,
Tice's flexibility to play the corners as well was something that was interesting to me. Andrew Velasquez is another one where he is a true shortstop that you could
he's a
pelt.
true shortstop, but the bat's not there.
Yeah,
It's kind of a situation where are you willing to sacrifice the bat in the lineup if everybody else is hitting to let him play
yeah,
defense? It's gonna be a lot that the manager's gonna have to handle.
yeah. And then the other one for me that kind of blew my mind a little bit was it almost feels like this is the year, especially with how again, injuries happen. But at least, coming out of spring, this is going to be the first year, I think, in a while that the Angels aren't trying one of their young kids out in, a everyday outfield spot.
Yeah,
And I'm talking, of course, about well, last year they added Mickey Moniak, but I was more so referring to Joe Adele as two guys that I'm looking at going, I was expecting one of them to sort of appear before
yeah.
the Hunter
The
Renfroe
the
signing,
thing
but
with Adele is that he kind of last two seasons kind of got himself out of that guaranteed
yeah,
spot with his defense, where he's the exact opposite of Velasquez.
yeah,
But the bat's there,
yeah,
but
the
when your
defense,
routine plays become errors,
yeah,
you become a liability on the team.
yeah, no, for sure. Now this is a team that I think as we move into a rotation here, I think it's going to be interesting as again, you've seen more Angels baseball than I. I'm looking at the Angels right now as a team who's kind of should be at the very least, just out of necessity, slated as a six-man rotation.
Yeah, no, they've. I think I saw that they announced they're going 6 man this year.
Okay,
And they've
because
they've they've been like in and out of a 6 man since Otani got back.
yeah, because I was going to say I'm looking at it, and the projected rotation, of course, is Otani number one, followed by Patrick Sandoval, who was absolutely incredible to watch last year. Um, We have Tyler Anderson was their big signing in the offseason, Jose Suarez, Reed Detmers, and then the sixth guy I would think would have to be Griffin Canning, right? Or am I
Yeah. So they're saying it's between Griffey Canning, Jamie Barria, and Tucker Davidson, but
okay?
more than likely it's gonna go to Canning or Barria, just
Yeah,
because they're already very lefty
yeah, that
heavy.
was the thing. Yeah,
is outside of the six spots, only Otani and then one of the possible six men are
Yeah,
right-handers. Everybody else is a left-hander.
yeah. So that was kind of the I don't know. I love the young Angels pitching.
Yeah, I really like Reed Detmers. He's the one who pitched the no-hitter last year.
Yeah, but Patrick
Um,
Sandoval is great.
Patrick Sandoval is really
We've
good.
seen flashes from Suarez. So I like the young pitching that's sort of coming up and bubbling up for this Angels team. But again, I agree that the concern for me is how lefty heavy this is.
Yeah,
And I look at some of the righty heavy bats, especially in the American League, and start to think to myself, oh, this might be a problem.
yeah.
You
It's
know,
definitely.
yeah,
We appreciate you finally trying to get pitching in All-Star Tyler Anderson, but
yeah, that was just a
not really
weird.
matching up well.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't love that one.
and then obviously the big storyline of this year is what are you doing with Otani?
Yeah,
And it completely just depends on what your record is before the trade deadline
yeah,
and where you
for
are in the
sure, for
line.
sure. And then as we move into the bullpen, it's
Yes.
for my estimation, this is very much a closer by committee.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it's there's
I
no
I
number one guy.
I guess you would kind of maybe think that Ryan Tepera is going to get the first look. Um, Carlos Estevez is out there. They have Carlos Estevez is slated to get the most save opportunities. I think just
Yeah,
off
I
the name
from
value.
everything I've been seeing, it looks like Estevez might be the one that slides into that closer position, but it's pretty
Okay.
much whoever is performing the best at that time.
Yeah, and I also see Jimmy Herget back there, Matt Moore, and then as you go into sort of the middle inning guys, Aaron Loop, Andrew Wants, Jose Quijada. This is where
Yeah,
I have Jaime Maria and Tucker Davidson as sort of longer relief guys.
yeah,
I assume one of them is actually shoot realizing outside of Herget and Wentz, Andrew Wentz, none of them have options.
yeah,
Wow, that's a dangerous game to play.
yeah.
Huh?
The season for the Angels is going to be very, very interesting how everything's going to play out. Like I said, it's going to be a very important season for the
Yeah, for
Angels
sure.
for
I
the
mean,
foreseeable future.
absolutely. I think I agree with you. Um, I mean, we talked about it in a previous episode, a bit about, the likelihood we felt that, the Angels would trade Otani versus, for better or for worse, trying their best to resign him. So it's definitely an interesting thing. And I am curious to see sort of how this goes. Moving on, we're going to move alphabetically to the Houston Astros. So the Houston Astros, obviously not a personal favorite of mine, but I'll go ahead and read this lineup off anyway. Second base, Jose Altuve, followed by Kyle Tucker in right, Alex Bregman at third, Jordan Alvarez DHing, Jose Abreu at first, Jeremy Pena at shortstop, left field Chas McCormick, center field Jake Myers, and catcher Martin Maldonado. Um, on the bench, Corey Lee, JJ Matishevitz, David Hensley, and Mauricio Dubon. Uh, of note, Michael Brantley remains on the IL, having re-signed with Houston. He is expected, I believe, to return at some point in the early going of the season. I don't expect that it'll be a long. It's already turned into a bit longer of a injury stay than I think most people expected. So I'm curious to sort of see how that factors in. You're going to have a couple of young guys in Cormick and Myers trying to sort of fill a gap. Neither of them lefty bats, though, which is kind of interesting to me. But again, you don't really need anyone too athletic or crazy to
Yeah.
play that sort of Crawford boxes in lefty Houston. What are your thoughts on this lineup?
I was going through it, and I might be crazy, but I think on paper it's a way better lineup than last year, and that's scary to think about. Because you add Jose Abreu once Michael Brantley gets back and is healthy,
Yeah,
he has his swings under him. Once you
yeah,
add him back into this lineup, it's going to be hard to get out.
Yeah,
From I saw a projected lineup with Michael Brantley back in. You have Jose Abreu hitting sixth.
yeah,
That is insane. That is a World Baseball
very
Classic roster.
yeah. No, this is kind of
So
ridiculous.
you're adding Abreu into this. They finally have like that a consistent power bat that's just gonna just crush everything in Houston. And Houston low key has a very favorable right field as well.
Yeah,
Not a lot of people talk about. So I feel like Abreu's gonna have a really good season. Um,
mhm.
and for me, yeah, I want to see what McCormick can do this year.
Yeah,
Um, to find to really round out the bottom of that lineup. But this team is going to be good. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just I really want to see how Abreu really takes to Houston.
yeah. No, agreed. I think for me, I'm looking up and down also into the farm system right now, and perhaps the most interesting thing for me personally, they don't necessarily have that sort of, in years past, I felt guys that like McCormick, like Myers, Jeremy Pena taking over after Carlos Correa leaves, were sort of like this heart and soul of like this Astros depth. I think that's the one concern for me. Is when I look at their bench, I very much like Mauricio Dubon, the
Yeah,
flexibility to essentially play everywhere. But JJ Matashevitz, uh, David Hensley, Corey Lee has been kind of this guy that they're waiting to become the catcher of the future in Houston. He now has competition in the form of Yainer Diaz. So it's very much of I'm struggling with the depth here.
yeah,
And part of my take on this Houston lineup is on paper, it is a very strong lineup, especially if they can stay healthy. But that is a little bit of the caveat as I start to look at, Altuve being 33 pretty early on into the year this year. I look at a guy like Jose Abreu, who's going to be who's 36 now. Maldonado is going to be 37 halfway through this year. Uh, you know, it's Michael Brantley's about to be 36, already on the IL. So some of these bigger hitters, and then you talk about Jordan Alvarez has now had some injury history.
yeah,
So it's a little bit of a concern for me. Sort of that wear and tear. Obviously, the roster you start with is not always the roster you finish with. In most cases, it definitely isn't the case. I think the one other glaring thing for me with this Astros team is I think I would have liked to see them upgrade the catcher position. I
mm-hmm.
love Martin Maldonado, Puerto Rican through and through. But I feel like this was the year to, I think they emphasized first base and Jose Abreu as
Yeah,
opposed to the guy I wanted them to take a shot as objectively as a baseball fan, of course, being Wilson Contreras, who ended up signing in St. Louis. Um, Moving on to the starting rotation. And for my money, before I even name the guys, I think I explicitly listed this as my favorite starting rotation in baseball.
yeah, you did.
Yeah. So I have listed in order Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Luis Garcia, Jose Urquidy, then Hunter Brown
Yes.
is currently slated to be the fifth starter, which was a little bit of a shock to me.
From what I've been seeing, it's because McCullers
Oh,
is
McCullers is still out. Yeah.
yeah, McCullers is
Okay.
still down. So while McCullers is
Yeah.
down, Hunter Brown is going to be popping into that fifth spot.
Yeah. Which it's probably a best case scenario for Hunter Brown. I mean, I really like what I've seen so far. They call him Young Verlander, which is
Yeah.
already a tough,
Oh yeah.
moniker. But I like what I've seen him so far. He fits this dynamic. That starting rotation, the only guy, or actually no, that's through and through. They're all under 30.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
Holy,
it's a really young rotation. It's something that you can build towards in the
yeah,
future, and it's smart. You brought up Maldonado. I think Maldonado probably is the perfect catcher for a more younger
yeah,
rotation like this because he's one of the best game callers in the game right now, and defensively one of the best catchers there. So he'll be there to tutor the kids, make sure that they don't make the mistakes that and if they are, he's there to coach them out of their head if they do make those mistakes. I really like what this rotation is right now and what it could be by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with you there.
Especially Christian Javier. I personally wasn't expecting much out of him last season, but then he just came in and made a name for
Exploded.
himself. So
Yeah,
it's fast development for your starters is something that they need to look to and that they're doing right now.
yeah, for sure. Moving on to the bullpen here. Uh, the closer, pretty clear cut. Ryan Presley had a great year last year.
Mm.
Uh, I'm a little bit in shock, actually. I'm looking at his Fangraphs projections for this year. Slated to have an almost 3 ERA, which feels a bit excessive. I guess they're just factoring in the ballpark. I'm not entirely
Yeah.
sure. Felt like the only team who actually hit Ryan Presley pretty well last year was the Yankees, funny enough. Uh, Rafael Montero re-signed with them in the offseason. Brian Abreu is out there. Hector Neris, Ryan Stanek, Phil Maton, Matt Gates, Seth Martinez. Am I missing anybody who could factor in? Brandon Bialik, I never know how to say his name. Um, JP France is an interesting name out there. Forrest Whitley, who I think the Astros sort of projected for a long time as a starter. He's kind of an interesting piece. I think if he's going to make it into the major leagues this year, he's on the 40 man. I kind of look to him to potentially move into a bullpen role.
Yeah.
His stuff can play in the bullpen for sure. I just, it's hard for me to justify that 5 man rotation that they currently have with Lance McCullers coming back.
I
Uh,
assume that Brown would go into the bullpen for more of a long, like middle relief role.
I'm
Once,
almost curious if this is another team that goes to a 6 man just because
yeah,
you have the guys. I don't think you want to play with Hunter Brown too much.
yeah, exactly.
Uh, and again, he's I don't I don't like the idea of screwing around with these young kids too much in terms of moving them back and forth. I watched for years with the Yankees doing that and kind of led to some unfortunate results. Guys like Job Chamberlain, Phil Hughes, uh, and even Ian Kennedy when he was a Yankee briefly. Uh, so I'm very curious sort of how that plays. I'd like to see him maybe. How do you feel about their bullpen?
Their bullpen I think is gonna be strong, especially spearheaded by Presley. It's still middle of the relief innings, but to be honest, I think their starters are good enough where you don't really have to. It'll cover a lot of that hole of their middle relief guys, where the starters can go deep.
Yeah.
I really like Presley. Montero is gonna have a good year. Stanek, I'm curious if he's gonna have any type of regression due to his age, but I'm curious about what this bullpen could be because
Yeah.
it could be a middle of the pack bullpen or it could be like one of the top ones of the year.
I mean, I really agree with that. I think this, the more I look at it, the better I like this bullpen. I think, and again, this is another situation where I could see the Astros. They've done it in the past. Stanek is one of those guys. Ryan Presley is another. So they made it as they picked up as a mid-season acquisition.
Yeah.
So it definitely could happen again. Interesting though. Interesting stuff. We move on to the Oakland Athletics now. Kind of a team on the opposite side of the spectrum in this AL West here. Uh, so we're gonna read out this lineup, and then I'm gonna give you a quick question that you got to answer. Okay. All right. The lineup goes in order: second base, Tony Kemp; right field, Ramon Laureano; first base, Seth Brown; DH, Jesus Aguilar; third base, Jace Peterson; catcher, Shea Langeliers; left field, Connor Capel; shortstop, Nick Allen; and center field, Esteury Ruiz. Now, the quick question immediately after that: 5 veterans in a row to lead off this lineup, over under 2.5 finishing the season with the Oakland Athletics, as opposed to being traded.
Under.
Under 2.5.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. No, this
All right.
team, I have it in my notes. Whatever good this team has by the deadline will be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. They're ready to just sell out. Let's have a yard sale before we got to pack up and move the house.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
it's
no,
crazy.
this
I
team's
will say all of that I just read out is like incredibly unlike the most team friendly. Most of those are arbitration guys. The
Yeah.
exception being Aguilar and Peterson, both signed as free agents on short, pretty small contracts. Um, really like Langeliers as a catcher. He was the top prospect of the Brave system for a while. He was part of that. I believe he was he the Murphy trade or the Olson trade? I think he was the Olson trade.
I think he was the Olsen trade too.
Yeah. So we got a little sneak peek of him last year. I think he's a defensive catcher, but I got some pop to him. I think he can definitely do some things behind the plate. Oh, on the bench is a guy who I think has taken some people by surprise, to say the least. In Yohel Pozo, former Rangers catcher,
Mhm.
is a non-roster invite in spring training, has sort of played his way into being this, probably their backup catcher for the season.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm seeing a lot of places are projecting him to be the backup.
yeah, so he's making it onto the roster there. A little bit of a shock to me, Christian Pache was also a part of that Olsen trade. Incredible defensive player, still hasn't quite figured it out with the bat. I'm a little bit surprised, I think, to see them potentially moving off of him, in center field so quickly. I understand Oakland, don't get me wrong, is a very not hitter friendly ballpark. So it's not helping him very much. And I understand you want
Yeah.
Esteury Ruiz, who projects as more of an offensive threat out there. But I feel like I would like to see a little bit more Christian Pache. Also, Aledmus Diaz, former Astros, on the bench there, and Ryan Noda, uh, who's a rookie this year, is slated to make the team. Um, yeah, I mean, and then as we move on to the rotation, Japanese signing, Shintaro Fujinami. It's kind of a shock signing for the
Yeah, I was
A's.
not expecting that one.
Yeah, no one saw that one coming. So that was an interesting one. He'll be their ace this year, followed by James Caprillion, JP Sears, Drew Roshinsky, and Ken Waldachuk. Three former Yankee prospects there, all traded to the Oakland A's, all slated to be in that starting rotation, especially Paul Blackburn, slated to be out at least through the start of the season. We'll see then if JP Sears potentially gets moved to a rotation
Yeah.
or a bullpen role. Uh, how do you feel about that rotation?
I'm curious to see how Fujinami does
Hmm.
because I really that's the thing I'm always most excited about is to see like those Japanese
Yeah,
players come back over and see how they do in their first year, maybe even into the future.
yeah,
Um, Everything else, I'm just it's question marks until you prove me something, and
yeah,
that's what this team is for me. It's just I don't. It's just a lot of question marks all over the place. Um, Blackburn's going to come back and still be a really good rotation piece,
yeah.
but he'll be gone by July.
Yeah, I was gonna say in this rotation, it's him and Caprillion, I think, that are the guys likely to be traded. Also, Kyle Muller is for some reason did he have that is spring where he is not slated to make break camp? I'm very confused by that.
I don't know. I'm looking up the spring stats right now.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on how Kyle Muller ended up out of this rotation altogether because he's not injured. Um, And while we look at that, I'll break down this bullpen real quick. Uh, Closing role is going to go to Trevor May, who got signed in the offseason by them. Kind of another interesting veteran signing. I like it though, because he's with a lot of youth out here. Zach Jackson, Danny Jimenez, Domingo Acevedo, Sam Moll, Chad Smith, Drew Steckenrider is the Wiley vet who's a non-roster invite slated to make the opening day roster regardless, and Adam Aller. So not particularly young, but definitely Major League Baseball inexperience. Only two guys have more than a year of service time on this in this bullpen. So kind of interesting there. Um,
From what I've
and
seen, he's only pitched like one or two games.
Kyle Muller, maybe he's just recovery or something.
Yeah,
I missed what sort of happened with him because I
yeah,
actually
he's
like
a
this.
1-of-1 record. Right now a 2 ERA, 375 average off of him.
Interesting. Maybe they're just bringing him along slow.
Yeah,
Uh, Also in this bullpen, Kirby Sneed is going to be out at least, I think, through May with a strain in the pitching shoulder, so they're going to nurse him back slowly. How do you feel about that bullpen?
Not loving it.
Yeah,
Not loving the bullpen at all. I just I don't know. This team is really tough to sell me on a lot of things.
yeah. I think for me, as I look up and down this roster, I'm I'm almost waiting for the fire sale to finish.
Yeah,
And the bigger part for me is I feel like this should have been a let the kids play season for Oakland, but for some reason there was, and don't get me wrong, you need the veteran signings, but I'm now seeing too many veteran signings taking up too much space here,
yeah,
which is a little weird for me. Like I said, first five guys in the lineup, all veteran signings on the bench. You now have Aledmus Diaz. Uh, I mean, in the bullpen, Trevor May and Steckenrider, like it feels a little, uh, you know, like those are signings for a young team who's on the precipice of starting to compete, not so
yeah,
much a
not
team who's just for the first time figuring out what their kids can do.
yeah.
That's a little confusing for me. And we're going to jump over then to the Seattle Mariners now.
All right.
Yeah, interesting club for sure. So this lineup reads as such. So right off the top, I'm a little shocked by this, I think. No, this can't be.
With
They're
what?
platooning at second base. They're not platooning at second base. That doesn't make any sense. All right,
No,
well, we're gonna
from
read it out
everything
as
I've
is.
been seeing is Colton Wong is getting that second base position.
Yeah, I have Colton Wong platoon with Sam Haggerty for some reason. At second base.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's interesting. But we're just going to read it off. Colton Wong at second base, followed by Julio Rodriguez, reigning Rookie of the Year. Ty France to follow, Teoscar Hernandez, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, Jared Kelenic, AJ Pollock is an interesting signing there, and JP Crawford rounding it out. On the bench, Tom Murphy, Cooper Hummel, uh, Tommy Listello, and Sam Haggerty. How do you like those guys?
I really like this lineup. I think at the additions of Teoscar Hernandez and Colton Wong is really going to round it out. And they have a great problem, whereas the DH position is not really solidified.
Yeah,
So you can just rotate out everybody who's not getting consistent on field time into that DH position. Um, no, I have real high hopes for this lineup. I think it's going to be really good. Obviously, we all expect J Rod to take another step into almost an MVP type conversation.
yeah.
I personally am really expecting this year to finally be the year that Kellenic arrives.
I hope so.
He's having a fantastic spring. Have you seen his numbers?
Yeah, it's stupid.
He's hitting
It is.
438 average, a 471 on base percentage, 938 slugging, and a 1.409 OPS with 4 home runs and 9 RBIs right now.
Yeah. No, it's something special, something to note. And I made a little face because I did not realize that both Dylan Moore and Taylor Trammell on this bench are expected to be out for a sizable amount of time.
Oh, really?
Dylan Moore had core muscle surgery in December. I did
Okay.
not realize. And Taylor Trammell has a fractured hamate. I don't know where that is on the body, but wishing them both speedy recovery. They're both projected to be out at least half the season. Wow, that's
So we're
unfortunate.
going to see a lot of probably Tommy LaStella and Colton Wong kind of flip.
Yeah, Evan White could see some big league action. Trying to see who else is in the system. Colin Moran is over here. Keon Wong is over here joining his brother. I actually don't know if they're related. I'm gonna assume so. Uh, and Cole Calhoun is
Yeah, they got
is
Cole Calhoun on the
this
roster.
does this complete his like run of the AL West or
I'm
does,
pretty sure it does. Let me look that up.
no Oakland yet? He's missing. Is he missing Oakland? No, he's missing Houston. He's been in Oakland. He came up with Oakland.
Yeah, He's missing Houston.
Just
No, he's
Houston?
missing Houston and Oakland.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Yeah,
still,
because the Angels were the ones that drafted him.
all right. He's on his way though. He's
Yeah.
gonna do the thing. He's gonna do the thing. He's doing what Kluber's doing in the AL East with pitching. Uh, all right. So we're gonna move on to the starting rotation. Uh, Luis Castillo is gonna be your ace, followed by Logan Gilbert, Robbie Ray, George Kirby, Marco Gonzalez in that five slot. Uh, excuse me. Let's see, do we got anybody else factoring in potentially? Justice Sheffield could maybe remake this roster in a pinch. Emerson Hancock is a young guy who's kind of ready for some big league action. Um, yeah, but I mean, even just in what I named there, that's an exciting crop of talent.
No, it's going to be a really good roster, especially with that rotation. It's going to be really good. Castillo, you expect to just keep going what he was doing at the end of the year with them. He seemed to really love the place where his everything, all his stats were going up. You hope Robbie Ray kind of has like a bounce back year.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say this is one of the weird situations where I feel like four guys in this rotation. If you told me by year's end they're gonna finish like top five in Cy Young voting in the AL,
Yeah,
I would
you
believe
could sell
that.
me on it.
Yeah, like you know, Castillo, Gilbert, Ray, and George Kirby, who I really liked what I saw of him last year. If you were to tell me that any one of those four guys were going to be top five in Cy Young voting by season's end, I'd believe that.
Yeah,
And it's a testament, considering that both Gilbert and Kirby are homegrown for Seattle, and what they've been able to do in sort of picking up Robbie Ray in free agency and Castillo when they got a chance with him, via trade last year. They've done their thing. And then as we move on to the bullpen, we have Paul Sewald closing it out.
yeah.
In front of him, Andres Munoz, Diego Castillo, Matt Brash, Penn Murphy, Trevor Gott, Matt Festa, Chris Flexen, a couple more guys who could potentially make some appearances out there. Justin Topa, Gabe Spear, Isaiah Campbell, Taylor Salcedo saw some interesting action for Toronto a year ago. So definitely some guys. I mean, they got some guys.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
they got a lot of middle of the pack talent. Nothing to really that jumps out of me. I like Seawald.
yeah,
I feel like this is probably the biggest hole of the team is maybe their back end of the rotation or the bullpen.
yeah,
Uh,
I could see
and
it.
I could definitely see them making a move of any type that at the deadline to add somebody. Um, I do like the middle of the bullpen,
Yeah.
but to be honest, nothing really jumps out as like
Yeah.
all
I see what you're saying. I could almost see them, trying to go and secure that closer role. I'm almost curious though. Andres Munoz is a guy I really like since he was in the Padres system. Seattle kind of permanently maneuvered him out to the bullpen. I'm curious to see if he, can maybe sort of cement himself as their, that next Edwin Diaz of sorts, as like that Seattle closer for years to come. Hopefully, in his case, uh, unless Steve Cohen comes calling again. Um, so moving on, we're going to go over to the final team in the ALS. Uh, Last but certainly not paying the least, Texas Rangers.
yeah.
Uh, Marcus Simeon leads off their lineup at second base, followed by Corey Seager at short. Nathaniel Lowe plays first. Delis Garcia is in the right. Jonah Heim behind the plate. Robbie Grossman in left. Josh Jung at third. Brad Miller DHing, and Bubba Thompson in center field. On the bench, Mitch Garver, Ezekiel Duran, Josh Smith, and a shock of all shocks, because of the strained oblique to Leody Taveras, slated to make the opening day rosters, Clint Frazier for the Texas Rangers. So that's an interesting one.
It is
Did
an
not see
interesting.
that coming. I mean, I'm happy for Clint. Uh, you'd love to see it, honestly.
Good for him.
Looking out at some guys who might also get some playing time. Jonathan Ornelas is kind of like this speedy middle infielder, could play some outfield. Acuna, the other Acuna, I did not realize was on the 40 man. So
Ooh,
that's interesting.
that is an interesting move for them.
Um,
You got him.
Dustin Harris could see some playing time. Yeah, so they, I mean, I'm interested there. I think the outfield picture is a little muddy, especially center and left. Um, center more so, I think, than anything else since Lodi Tavares went down. What are your thoughts here?
Honestly, this team is probably the most confusing to me on where they are. Like, you can sell me that this team is a borderline wildcard team or 70 win sellers at the deadline.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
like it could be either or just because you expect the highest paid middle infield in baseball to bounce back this year and not have a really terrible year like last year. And then you expect a lot of their young up and coming guys to produce.
Yeah.
I like Bohm a lot. I think is their catcher, right?
Jonah Heim is their
Jonah
catcher.
Heim, Jonah Heim, not Bohm. What? I like him a lot. He was having a lot of clutch at bats for them last year throughout the
Yeah.
season. Um, I just don't know. It all comes down to health and where these guys are mentally, and if a lot of their veteran signings can, reproduce what they got signed for.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't realize how much I liked this line.
Yeah,
Projections alone, if you had told me before I really took a look at this lineup that the Rangers had five guys in their starting lineup projected to hit 20 plus home runs with more than a 750 OPS, I would have said Simeon Seager and who else?
yeah,
And then I look at it, and Nathaniel Lowe has been on quite the tear. Uh, so I like what he's done since coming over to Texas. Adolis Garcia is somebody who's always exciting to watch.
yeah,
Then it was Josh Jung, the rookie, a guy I actually picked as my AL Rookie of the Year. Uh, for this upcoming season, is another guy slated to have a 750 OPS or higher. Really interesting stuff. Robbie Grossman is kind of a sleeper signing for me. Really liked what he did when he was in Detroit. Another switch hitting bat in a lineup that has a lot. And this is a really well balanced lineup. It goes right, left, left, right, switch, switch, right, left, right. Off the bench, you have three righties and a lefty in Josh Smith. Ezekiel Duran is another guy. If they can kind of, it's just I don't know where he plays at that point. Is my own issue with
yeah,
him. Move on to the rotation and the big signings from this year are definitely all rotation pieces. Uh, we know they're one
yeah.
is Jacob
Another
DeGrom,
one.
followed by Martin Perez, John Gray, the guy I forgot they signed this year. Two guys I forgot they signed this year.
Yeah.
Nathan Eovaldi
Nathan
and
Eovaldi,
Andrew Heaney.
a fixed Andrew Heaney.
Jake Odorizzi, it could be back in time for opening day. It's kind of a question mark. And then I think this is a team who, given some guys who are all above 30, this is the antithesis of what that Astros team looks like rotation.
Yeah,
Uh, Probably moves to a six-man rotation to protect those arms. DeGrom in particular, you want to save him. That's interesting. This is a team this is the most I've liked a Rangers rotation in ever.
ever. Yeah, I think this is the first time they've had like solid pitching to complement a decent lineup.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is
I like it. It just for me, it comes down to health. I really like Martin Perez. I thought he'd be on the trade block last year. Turns out now they're really sold on him. I think once you add Jake Odorizzi into this, it can honestly become probably the third best rotation in this division.
yeah,
Maybe an argument for second with Seattle if
yeah,
Degrom is having a typical Degrom year. It, it's going to be
yeah.
good. I also like before I was researching, I also forgot they signed Evaldi.
Yeah, like really. I mean, that just like I just saw the name pop up at their fourth start. There's no way that actually projects out right. I got to see if is Chris Woodward still the manager down there. I got to see a press conference where he said Evaldi was going to be their fourth starter, unless they're doing the Mets thing where they're staggering their paces.
I'd assume
Um,
that's what they're doing because me
yeah,
personally, I'd probably go DeGrom, Perez, have a lefty righty type thing.
yeah,
Um, Evaldi's either your third or your like
yeah,
it's weird. Like you can really structure this rotation in any
yeah.
type of way that could help you.
No, for sure. In the bullpen, Jose Leclerc is back closing games for them. Uh, he'll be a free agent at the end of the year. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hernandez, Brock Burke, Joe Barlow, Will Smith. I did not realize when they oh, wow, they picked up Will Smith. Oh, in March this month. Oh,
Yeah.
does he see
shows
any
how
action for them?
shows how much we're paying attention to
Jesus.
the Rangers.
Right, Taylor Hearn, Josh Spores, Cole Raggins, Brett Martin is likely out for the year with shoulder surgery. Anybody else in that bullpen that we can be looking? Oh, Dane Dunning is another rotation guy. Glenn Otto, Spencer Howard, Cole Winn. Shit, they have a lot of rotation. My God, they got like 10 guys. This is the
They
Giants
have a
last year.
really deep bullpen, and I expect them to be just shuffling through them throughout the whole year.
I mean, those were just starters though. Dunning, Otto, Howard, Wynn. Those are all like young
Yeah,
players who have only started games before. That's interesting.
I'd assume they take a more long relief role,
I probably, or they're just banking
unless
on.
injuries
I was
pile
just gonna
up.
say, unless they're banking on all these old dudes getting hurt.
Yeah,
Also, bullpen options,
they're
John
kind of
King.
taking what the Angels' approaches to the middle to the infield.
Yeah, that's fair. They're assuming somebody's getting hurt eventually. That's an interesting ball club. I'm gonna be honest. Analyzing this roster, I think I like it a little bit more than I thought I would.
Yeah,
So
I you can convince me of this team either being a 70-win team or a wild card team.
yeah,
They're- I,
this is an interesting one.
it's a really confusing team.
This is a division that got a lot more interesting the more I looked at it.
Yeah,
Uh, okay, so without further ado, we're just gonna go right into
jump right into the standings.
our standings here. Okay, so we're gonna start at the bottom of the division.
Okay, fifth place.
I think we can unanimously agree that it's gonna be the Houston Astros. No, it's gonna be the Oakland Athletics for
Yeah,
me.
it's gonna be the Las Vegas Athletics.
Oh wow, you're calling it already. Vote next
I have
January.
been forever.
Yeah,
They're gone.
yeah, I
There's
know.
too much writing.
And it's depressing. I don't want that for Oakland, but like I want it for the A's, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes sense.
Like I would like if the team moved to Vegas and then Major League Baseball did an expansion and the city of Oakland decided, all right, we're really gonna like get a
Care.
new ownership group in here, who's gonna pay for everything and we're gonna get a team back. I would like that.
Yeah.
I think that's my dream scenario here. Uh so we're gonna follow that up. Actually, you know what? We're gonna do a nice little thing for Oakland. Can you give me one guy on Oakland in general who you expect to have a very good year?
I think once Paul Blackburn gets back from
Nice.
his
It would
injury,
be
I think he's gonna be their only All-Star representation.
he
Again,
was last year.
he was last year, and I think it's gonna be a thing again this year if he has a similar year.
I'm gonna go slightly different on this route. I'm gonna go with one of the young kids. I think this is going to be a year and a half for Esteury Ruiz. I think he's going to force his way into the Rookie of the Year conversation.
Okay.
He's one of the better sheer athletes I think I've seen in a long time on a major league roster. Um, he's projected for about 30 steals. I think it could be more. And I mean, if he's able to really benefit from some of these veterans,
Yeah.
uh, pick up tips and tricks here and there, I think he's a guy who could really have a year. So who's your fourth team in this division?
My fourth team, I have the Rangers.
Ooh, okay.
And that's only just because right now I'm taking the under until this team proves me wrong.
Okay.
that they're going to actually produce.
Okay. So give me a positive here. All right. Give me and I will say as your
I
fourth
think
team.
Andrew Heaney is going to be the most unsung hero of this team.
Ooh, I
I
like that.
really liked him last year with the Dodgers. I feel like the Dodgers really fixed him, especially with his pitch choice. I feel like Andrew Heaney is going to be a big addition that is it really went under the radar when they signed him, even though they signed him to a decent contract. I feel like that's going to be their biggest thing to talk about outside of like Martin Perez.
Interesting. I like that. Um, so now I'm gonna ask you because we're in a weird sort of situation with the three wild card teams now. Technically speaking, just from what we've discussed so far, this is our first divisional projection. Would the Rangers, which would mean every team in the West, with the exception of the A's, are the Rangers a playoff team for you?
I don't have them as a playoff team at the moment.
Okay. All right. So my team here is going to actually be the Angels.
Okay.
I feel like the lack of athleticism is really going to be their downfall. It's not to say they can't hover near 500, but I
Yeah.
think this is a team who could have really used the extra few games to beat up on the A's. But in a season where that's not so much going to happen, I think they're going to get a little bit exposed by the rest of the league as an entirety, which is unfortunate because I would have liked a little bit more for them. Um, my one standout this year, I'm trying to go against the grain here.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I mean,
Ohtani,
outside of Otani and Trout,
yeah, Ohtani and Trout are going to be Ohtani and Trout. I, I, I'm curious to see a bounce back year from Anthony Rendon,
yes, same here.
what that would look like. I think he's a guy who has gotten forgotten about very quickly. We're 2 years removed now, I believe, two or three, from his signing with the Angels after the World Series win.
This will
What was
be
that? That
year.
was 18?
That was
Oh my
19.
God, are we?
It was
Oh,
19.
that was 19. That was
2019.
19.
So this is his third year with the club.
Okay. Third year with the club. So hopefully he can stay healthy, show us what a full season of Anthony Rendon looks like. I would like to see that out of him more, I think about it.
That's what honestly what I'm really hoping for too with this team is I think that's the big key piece in that lineup. What it'll be.
Yeah. So we're gonna flip over now to our middle of this I'm gonna assume we're just flip-flopping here because my
Yeah,
next team is the Texas Rangers right here in the middle of it. Um, Full disclosure, I don't see them being a playoff team. I think another division is a little too heavy
same here.
to sort of allow another, the Central or the West. Damn, I tipped my head too early. Uh, to sort of have a pair of wild card. Not to say the Rangers can't finish a couple games out, but they'll be in it. Um, Man, and from the Rangers, my standout. I already I already gave Josh Jungmann as my rookie of the year, so I'm gonna go a different route here. I'm gonna go Jose Leclerc, closing games down for a Texas Rangers ball club, who's gonna produce a lot of like leads going late.
Yeah,
With what that rotation looks like, with what the lineup could do on a good day. Jose Leclerc to sort of be, sort of get back to that all-star form we saw before the big injury, and right in time to sort of bleed into a free agency for him. So that'll be an interesting one for watch.
yeah, no, for sure. Right now I have the Angels. Me and you flip flop. I have them finishing third. Um, just from everything health wise, I think they could be a better team than the Texas Rangers if they stay healthy. For me, the standout would definitely be since you already went Rendon was going to be mine. Mine would be Tyler Anderson. I
Ooh,
think
okay.
adding him, taking him away from the Dodgers, they're finally going to have somebody under Otani that's going to be a solidified number two starter, in my opinion.
Okay.
Um, I think he's going to have a great year for them. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to get
Yeah.
them into the playoffs. I currently do not have them in the playoffs.
Okay. Okay. Um, all right. So we're gonna move on here. Who is your second team?
My second place team is the Houston Astros. I
Oh
think
man.
this is the year they get dethroned, and I still think they're going to be a crazy 95 plus
Yeah.
win team. Um, I think Altuve is going to have a great year. Brantley, when Alvarez gets back, he's going to be good. Like I just think it's going to be a really really solid team. Um, I just have a sinking feeling about who my number one is. I just feel like I'm really high up on them this year.
Yeah. Um, are they a playoff team?
They are a playoff team.
Okay. Do you have them ranked in a number in your wild card format?
I probably have them in my like the first seat for the wild card.
Yeah. I'm gonna go straight up agreement with you. I feel like I've sort of said the writing has to be on the wall at some point for the Astros.
Yeah,
This is a year where, I love what the rotation is, but for the first time, I see the cracks starting to form in an aging lineup. It's something to watch. And the depth for me isn't there that the Astros have had when you've had guys in the past like a Marwin Gonzalez. We've had guys like a Yuli Gurriel who could theoretically slot in and just sort of take over for a month or so. I just don't see it right now. Again, it could come, but at least for what I'm looking at on paper right now, this is a team for me that's gonna gonna have their bumps. I still have them being 100+ win team for the
yeah.
record, but it's a statement of what I think the top team in this division will finish as. For me, I love very much what I really really believe will be. I don't know. I love this rotation so much. This is so
I
hard.
do like during this whole conversation, I've been talking myself into this rotation, and I think
Yeah,
it is the best rotation in the division. It's just to me, like you said, like the depth thing is a little troubling, and I'm
yeah.
not entirely sold on their middle line of the bullpen.
Yeah. You know what? This is where I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go Framber Valdez for me was a guy in our preseason sort of, award show predictions. I think I took him to be my Cy Young. I'm going to just double down here and
Yeah,
say, because it's hard because I also, Christian Javier, Luis Garcia, you know what? I'm going to go different this one. He's going to be my Cy Young, but also I'm going to take Urquidy to be a guy who he's currently slated as the fourth guy in this rotation. So he to take a huge step forward and potentially generate some interest come trade deadline time. I think the McCullers contract's going to be impossible to move. Brown is too early onto his career. They're not going to want to part with Valdez or Javier, but if they're missing something at the deadline and you
yeah,
could do like a contender for contender swap, Urquidy could be a guy who becomes a one or two on a different contender by midseason.
I can see that.
So
My standout would probably be Jordan Alvarez. I had him slated as winning the Hank Aaron Award. I think without a doubt he is going to be the best hitter on this team, especially with having the protection of Jose Abreu behind him.
yeah,
It's going to be insane what this lineup can produce offensive wise.
yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. Um, yeah, and then we're just gonna go right into it. Seattle Mariners we both have as winning this
Both have
division.
Seattle winning it. I really like this team, man.
I do too. I love what they've put together. I feel like this is maybe one of the most dangerous lineups in baseball.
It's deep.
It is,
That's what I love about it, especially that like I said earlier, that DH position, you can do whatever you want. Like you don't
yeah,
have that solidified man at that DH that if you want to give a rest to one of the guys in the outfield, you can that day and just slot him in
yeah.
to the
And this is another one of those rotations where, like I said, four guys are
yeah,
legitimate, theoretical Cy Young contenders. Marco Gonzalez is no slouch in his own right. Uh, the bullpen is it's maybe not top heavy, but it's fucking thick.
yeah.
That is a theoretical playoff situation. You got to run through six guys who can get three outs at a time. Like it's tough. Um, you know, I love what this lineup is. The guy I'm going to single out. I'm going to go Logan Gilbert
Ooh,
as the guy who everyone's looking at Luis Castillo after he got the big extension. Logan Gilbert is a guy who's now had two really solid seasons in Major League Baseball. Has done some pretty impressive things already, and I have him being this just tank. I think he's not a big strikeout guy,
Mhm.
but in a post-shift world, it might play well to just be able to put the ball in play, a lot of ground balls.
Yeah, especially with the
That
defense he has behind him too.
Yeah, it's a really good defensive team. So I'm gonna go Logan Gilbert as my guy.
Mine's going to be the obvious choice for the guy, the standout, is because I picked him to win MVP this year. I have Julio Rodriguez being the guy that projects his
Yeah,
team to dethrone at the Astros, and you can't convince me otherwise, man.
yeah, no, totally agree. This was a fun one, man.
It was a
I
fun
I feel
one.
like,
We're
you know,
missing
I
some
wish.
bodies, but it's great to have the good one-on-ones.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. I feel like this was an episode where it could have led to more shock if not for the fact that we both had the Mariners jump in the
Yeah.
Astros. But
I think
here
we
we
talked
are.
too much about baseball outside of the podcast, where
Yep.
we both convinced ourselves that the Mariners are
Yeah,
winning.
we talked ourselves into this one a little too much. But still, thank you for doing this one with me,
Of
and
course,
we'll
man.
be back in the preceding few days with all the divisional breakdowns to come. So stay tuned for those, and it has been real. It has been nice. It has been really, really nice, and we'll talk soon.